Welcome to episode 9 of the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. This is the first episode of the new year, and I wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to the listeners, especially the real ones that have been with me from the start. I've got your feedback, and we're going to continue to bring you hip hop news throughout the year of 2022. So let's get it. Now let's get straight into the new albums that are supposed to be coming out this month of January 2022. In just a few days, we've got Gunna. I'm talking about Young Thug's protege, one of the young folks' favorite acts. He's dropping an album this Friday on the 7th. It's definitely going to get a spin from me. But a week from then, on Friday the 14th, we've got two young heavy hitters dropping albums, and I'm talking about Cordae and Earl Sweatshirt. Now, if you don't know Cordae, he got big off of dropping a remix to J. Cole's 1985, and that track was some fire. You need to check it out. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for this album that he's dropping on the 14th called A Bird's Eye View. And then on top of that, we got Earl Sweatshirt coming out with an album. He dropped a track a few weeks ago called 2010. And if this album is anything as good as that track was, I mean, he's one of the dopest young lyricists out. So you want to make sure you listen to both of those albums on the 14th. We've also got Shay Noir dropping her album this month on the 21st. Food for Thought. That's the name of the album, and I have been waiting on this one. I'm glad she's dropping it. She's one of the best MCs out. She's basically my best new artist of 2020. I've talked about her before. You're going to want to make sure you check out this Food for Thought album on the 21st. Alright? Now, other than that, we've got Earth Gang dropping an album. They dropped a single last week called American Horror Story, and they're going in on that track. I really like Earth Gang. That's a part of Spillage Village. Spillage Village was JayZ, 6 Lack, and Earth Gang. Now, basically all those acts have been signed to Dreamville, and they're still coming with fire. And so I can't wait for this new Earth Gang album this month. In addition to those, I've heard that we've got albums from Snoop Dogg and Eminem that could be dropping this month as well. This Snoop Dogg album is supposed to be produced by DJ Battlecat, and I'm definitely hoping both of those drop. So an interesting piece of hip-hop news that I saw a few days ago was that Angela Kukowski, who was the financial manager for Tupac and Kanye and the Kardashians, was found dead in a trunk a few days ago. I mean, they really Jackie Brown Beauregarded her. That's crazy stuff. I don't know if you heard that in the mainstream media news. I'm not lying to you. It's the kind of stuff you won't hear in the news. You can go check it out. Go search it up yourself. But, yeah, it's kind of crazy, you know. Speaking of Beauregard and Chris Tucker, Ice Cube once again had to deal with people on Twitter and elsewhere saying that he didn't pay people enough for the work that they did on the first Friday movie. He's gotten into this before and told people that, hey, they got paid scale. There wasn't a franchise at that point that was popping to where there was a whole lot of money. He reminded folks that he offered Chris Tucker $12 million to do next Friday, but Chris Tucker turned it down. Now, I don't think that Ice Cube is telling folks that to deflect. I think he's being real honest, right? Folks did get paid for the work that they did for next Friday. It's a big franchise now and people want to get paid royalties, but if that wasn't what the deal was, you really can't get mad at Cube. I think it's kind of disingenuous to, get mad at him if he hasn't specifically done anything to like connive you, and I don't think Cube has against that cast. So now, if you didn't know about it, Dr. Dre just dropped 6 new tracks for the Grand Theft Auto video game, but now you can go check them out on your favorite digital streaming platform or YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search Dr. Dre, The Contract, and you're going to find these new tracks. They're fire. I highly suggest you check them out. It's been so long since we've gotten something from Dre, so that's a blessing. Make sure you check those out. So there have been all these GOAT conversations that have been going on, in general, for years and years, right? But I'm talking about most specifically the last couple weeks here. If you've been following any of this in hip-hop news, it really started with Future and folks saying that Future was the best out and that Future could beat Hova in a versus battle. Alright, so then I think it was about 2 days later, Hova came out and said nobody will be able to go up on the stage and beat him in a versus battle. And from there, him just saying those few words incited quite a bit of fervor on Twitter and just in the hip-hop world in general. Then we started to get a lot of conversations about who could be JayZ up there. Folks would say Eminem. Folks would say Lil Wayne. Folks would say other people. What's really interesting to me, I really think that the echelon where Hova is just about a couple folks that might even be able to keep up with them. You can't really put him with Drake because that's apples to oranges. In my opinion, it's all hip hop, but it's just a different feel and it's a different era. That's why I think that, you could really only put Hova against Nas, right? I think you could put him up against Eminem and that would be an interesting battle. But I don't know. I feel like, I'm not saying that Eminem isn't in that echelon. I just don't think that there's too many people that could genuinely step into a versus battle with JayZ. So all that talk about like Future and all that, I know people love Future, and for the new generation, a lot of folks really, they eat him up, but it's not a contest between him and Hova, like Hova said. So make sure that you understand and give respect to the folks that have been dropping hits for years. If you look through JayZ's catalog, the stuff that he was dropping on the Blueprint, come on now, what does Future have that will light up a crowd more than some of the tracks that he's done with the Neptunes and with Pharrell, right? Or Timbaland, right? So you guys got to really make sure that you listen to the music before, you make these judgments. And it's mostly Twitter. It really incites a lot of nonsense, man. So, just take Twitter with a grain of salt and make sure that you're listening to what folks are saying, like JayZ when he says nobody can get into the ring with him. Nobody can go up there and beat him in a versus. All right. Now I need you to go right now and follow Attribute 718 on Instagram and check out his new track that he just dropped, because it's fire and it's featuring Sloan Bone, Crazy Bone, and King Crooked. Now, if you know King Crooked and Crazy Bone, those are top tier MCs, and they both blacked out on this track. You need to go check Never Switch Up by Attribute right now. I'm glad to see hip-hop of this caliber coming out of Humboldt County. It's a level up. Thanks to Attribute for keeping Humboldt hip-hop hard in 2022. Now, last up to end the podcast, what I'm not going to do is go into my top 10 albums of the year list for 2021 like most people will do. I'm not trying to get lost in the jumble of that conversation, because there's a lot of people having that conversation. If you're into hip hop, you know what you like. I want to make sure you check out that Isaiah Rashad album, and you need to check out that Little Sims album. But other than that, you can go to my Twitter right now at Hip Hop Humboldt, and my top hip hop albums of 2021 list is up there, and you can compare against what you like and see if some of the stuff that you like is on there, and maybe some stuff you didn't know about is on there, and you can go check it out. I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. But what I will do is we're going to get into my top 10 producers list of 2021. Now, first up, if you've been listening to hip hop at all this whole year, you had to have been under a rock to not know about Hit Boy, right? And what he was doing with Nas, with these last 3 projects that him and Nas were dropping between KD1, KD2, and now this Magic project that they dropped at the end of 2021. Hit Boy, he takes the year. I don't want to say easily when you hear who I have for the number 2 spot, because he's not that far away from The Alchemist, who's in my number 2 spot. The Alchemist was dropping dope music. I'm talking some timeless music all year, like he always does. He's dropped about 6 projects with one of my favorite new artists, Boldy James, just in the last couple years. He's coming with fire again and again and again. He doesn't really miss. Shout out to The Alchemist. But that's my number 2 producer of 2021. Next up, somebody that's on the lists every single year, and deservedly so. That's Boy Wonder. Between the work that he did on Drake's album, he's definitely in that top 3, and I think he deserves that spot at the 3rd best producer of 2021, according to me, right? Next up, I want to give a big shout out to Kenny Beats, because what he did on that Vince Staples album, he really knocked that album out of the park. And I want to give a special shout out to Kenny Beats for that. Number 5 on my Producers of the Year list is Ninth Wonder. Now, I've talked about Ninth Wonder in other podcasts. You probably know about Ninth Wonder at this point. But the Zion album that he dropped at the end of the year was absolute fire. You need to make sure you check it out. He's that type of instrumentalist producer. He reminds me a lot of Jay Dilla. He's really like a new iteration of Jay Dilla. And he lives, it's hard to say that, but he's really living up to that title as a new Jay Dilla, because Ninth Wonder is just dropping nothing but heat when it comes to samples. He's able to sample like really none other, Shout out to Ninth Wonder. Next up on my Producers of the Year list is Tyler, the Creator, for what he did for his own album, Call Me If You Get Lost, that he dropped with DJ Drama, to that track that he dropped with Maxo Cream that he produced. His skills are up there. He's not somebody to play around with. He's a problem. So make sure that you keep Tyler in mind when you talk about top producers of 2021. Next up, I gotta give a shout out to one of my favorite all-time producers. I'm talking about Static Selector, because he was dropping a bunch of dope projects that people probably don't remember and maybe didn't even hear about. But you need to check that 1982 album that he dropped with Terminology towards the end of 2021. It had nothing but fire on there. He's one of my favorite producers, like I said, for a reason, because he's coming through with a sound that nobody else is really emulating. So shout out to Static Selector. He's a legendary hip-hop producer. Next up, another legend. You know him from Cypress Hill fame, and I'm talking about DJ Muggs. He's one of the hardest producers out because he's grimy. The beats, there's nobody grimier than DJ Muggs. That's for real. So shout out to DJ Muggs for making my list. Number 9 on my top producers list of 2021. Number 9 is Apollo Brown. The work that he did with Stolly on that Blacklight album definitely has earned him a spot on my top producers list. You need to check out Blacklight, the collaboration between Stolly and Apollo Brown. The sampling was on point. Apollo is in his best form in this one, and you need to make sure you check it. Last up on my top 10 producers of 2021 is somebody who's made the list of the last couple years, and I'm talking 38 Special, Trust Gang, alright? He does work with Ransom, he does work with Shay Noir. You need to stay on top of what 38 Special is doing, especially considering Shay Noir's dropping her album in just a couple weeks here. If you don't know 38 Special by now, you're going to know him after 2022, alright? Mark my words. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time as always. I'm going to continue to bring you hip-hop news, new releases, local hip-hop drops. So tune in to the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast discovery platform, whether you're using Spotify, Google, Apple, Pocket Casts, Overcast, whatever cast. Just subscribe to the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast. Till next time.